interview this week, philosopher and author Rüdiger Safranski.
Rüdiger Safranski,
Germany had a lot to celebrate this year. The 60th anniversary of the post-war constitution, the 20th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the 250th anniversary of Friedrich Schiller's birth. Schiller's big theme was freedom, and the fall of the Berlin Wall 20 years ago was also about freedom. East Germans liberated themselves from a dictatorship. Would this revolution have pleased Schiller?
Diese Revolution gefallen vor 20 Jahren, der Mauerfall.
Ja, doch, die hätte ihm auf jeden Fall gefallen.
He definitely would have liked it. He was someone who wanted to see people break free of their chains. But he was foreign to the notion that you first had to change human nature and create a new mentality. If people are held against their will, they should be freed. That's something he would have agreed with.
Das hat Evidenz, das hätte seine Zustimmung gefunden.
We've been celebrating the 250th anniversary of Schiller's birth, but festivities were somewhat overshadowed by other anniversaries. How important is Schiller to Germans? Is he still relevant?
Ja, ich bin überrascht. Offenbar doch noch sehr, ja.
I'm surprised. Apparently he still means a lot to people. It's something I've noticed with my publications. I think Schiller's idea of freedom is one that's convincing and one that people like to hear. Just how thoroughly people still read him is something that's naturally subject to doubt. But in the theater world, he's a force to be reckoned with again. And that's a good thing. After all, Schiller remains one of the greatest playwrights and dramatists that we have in the German culture.
Weil Schiller ist immer noch einer der größten Theatermacher und Theaterdichter, die wir in der deutschen Kultur haben.
Also das Theater hat ihn wiederentdeckt.
The theatre world has rediscovered Schiller, and we've also rediscovered his friendship with Goethe, German literature's other big name. That's the subject of your book that's been at the top of the bestseller list for months. What is it about the friendship between Goethe and Schiller that fascinates readers?
Dichterfreundschaft zwischen Goethe und Schiller.
Ja, vielleicht sage ich mal, was mich fasziniert, dann ist das.
Let me start by saying what fascinates me, and maybe it's the same thing that fascinates readers. What fascinates me is that it was a genuine friendship, and not just a myth that was invented after their time because people thought it would make for a good story. No, the two were really friends with one another, in spite of their differences. And given the differences in their character and literary styles, and the way they thought, it's amazing that their friendship functioned and that they influenced one another. They eventually got over their mutual envy and rivalry, and during their friendship, they were involved in each other's work. So there was no need for them to be envious.
War jeder irgendwie doch mitbeteiligt am Werk des anderen, und so brauchte man auch nicht neidisch zu sein.
But really, Schiller had reasons to be envious. Goethe achieved fame before he did, and everything seemed to fall in his lap, while Schiller thought he had to fight for everything.
Ja, Schiller hat gehadert mit seinem Schicksal. Ja,
Schiller had a hard time accepting his fate. He really believed that he had to fight, and he did have to. For one thing, he had a sickly body. He was always fighting for his health, and Schiller thought Goethe was just plain lucky. In the beginning, Schiller felt envy and rivalry with Goethe, but he managed to deal with those feelings constructively. Later, when Goethe wrote his masterpiece novel Wilhelm Meister, Schiller didn't criticize Goethe directly anymore. He criticized the character in the novel. The character took the punches that had actually been intended for Goethe.
But what many people don't realize is that Schiller was the one who had a cult following in the 19th century. There were huge festivities to mark what would have been his 100th birthday. This time, the 250th anniversary, a museum was rededicated. But no strong emotions?
Aber Emotionen in der Form kann nicht mehr schüren, oder?
Nicht mehr so wie damals beim 100.
Not like the 100th anniversary. That wasn't just a poet's birthday. Schiller was celebrated as a symbol of German unity, which had yet to be completed. He was seen as the poet of German freedom, and that's a role he won't have again. Now it's more about remembering a literary giant in our cultural heritage. Moreover, when you look at statues, the kind of person Schiller was is ideal for inspiring people. He was a proud man with a noble stature. There's something heroic about him. And people are still moved by that.
So ein stolzer, stattlicher Mann, der hat so was Heroisches, ja? Und ich glaube, das wirkt immer noch.
Still, as far as posterity is concerned, Goethe is the larger figure today. Foreign tourists go to Weimar to see Goethe's home, not to Marburg to see Schiller's. They go to the Goethe Institute in Jakarta or Mexico City to learn German. Why isn't it called the Schiller Institute? Why did Goethe beat him out, so to speak?
Warum hat's Goethe dann letztlich gerissen, wie man sagen würde?
Ja, Goethe ist letztlich doch der Universalere.
Goethe was a sort of Renaissance man, a universal genius. He touched on the natural sciences, literature, went into politics, and served as a government official. He forged his life as a work of art. That's what makes him a giant, why people are attracted to him. He pondered Oriental and Arabic culture. In short, Goethe was more of a world citizen, and that's what makes him more interesting to an international audience. Schiller had some uniquely German attributes.
Auf dem internationalen Markt. Schiller hat doch was sehr speziell Deutsches auch.
Both are perceived as fundamentally German and representing the good and bright side of the German mentality.
Die helle Seite des Deutschen sozusagen.
Ja, Gottlob, nicht? Also wir haben hier so zwei Figuren.
Yes, there are two figures who truly represent the best aspects. Neither of them was a nationalist or prone to national arrogance. Both considered themselves part of a larger intellectual realm, one that knew no boundaries. And their cosmopolitanism is an appropriate way to remember them.
Kosmopolitismus, den sie beide hatten, ja, der eignet sich schon ganz schön, an sie zu erinnern.
Last year, a ranking of Europe's most important playwrights put Schiller in, where else, second place, behind Shakespeare. And once again there's a debate surrounding Shakespeare as to whether he was really the author of his works or if it was somebody else. Has an historical fabrication taking place?
Also Shakespeare, das ist eine unglaublich spannende Geschichte, weil
Shakespeare is a truly fascinating story. I'm completely convinced that it was Lord Oxford. There's a new biography out, and for the first time, the storyline fits with the literary work. Until now, there were only biographies suggesting that something was missing. As far as William Shakespeare is concerned, we don't know anything about him. We don't even know if he could write. So, of course, it's a perfect opportunity for speculation. And Lord Oxford has a background that makes it easy to believe he was the author. There's so much evidence, so much border crossing. As far as I'm concerned, the matter is clear.
Da gibt es einen so starken Grenzverkehr. Also für mich ist die Sache klar.
Rüdiger Safranski, you've written a wonderful double biography of Goethe and Schiller. What are your plans for 2010?
Da schreibe ich ein Buch über.
I'm writing a book about how we experience time. It's a philosophical book about accelerated time, managed time, existential time, and perceived time. It raises the ages-old question posed by St. Augustine in the 11th book of his Confessions. What is the meaning of time? He said he knew the meaning for himself, but was unable to explain it. I'm trying to do the opposite.
Erklären soll, weiß ich's nicht. Ich versuch's mal umzudrehen.
Our time's up. Rüdiger Safranski, thanks for talking to us.